Hey everyone, welcome to A Drink with Crazy, and this is going to be our first series. This is going to be a three-part series. We're going to talk about a lot of things that have been going wrong with our video games, our movies, and our TV. We're going to start off with the critics versus the fan reviews and what we think critics and fans are actually looking for and why they're different. That is going to lead us into the conversation of the Mary Sue and why it has become so predominant in all of our media platforms, whether we're talking Mary Sue's or the guys, the Gary Stews. And then finally, we're going to wrap it up with how all of this turns into a conversation and the myth about the toxic fan bases. So stay tuned and let's get into part one of this series. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you ring that notification bell, and make sure to share this with everyone you know to help us beat that massive YouTube algorithm. All right. So
Alrighty. Yeah.
this is actually something that you've been thinking about a lot lately.
No,
for the
it
critics
has.
versus the fans and the reviews and how they culminate and what they're looking at. So start us off here.
Well, I watch a lot of like critics on YouTube. I read a bunch of stuff from Forbes and a lot of the major publications like GameSpot and all that. And what really kind of highlighted this for me was the difference in the expectation between the critics and the fans when it came to The Last of Us Part 2. Mm-hmm. And so many of the critics were approaching this almost like my lit teacher.
Yep.
They were like looking at the themes and the motifs and how this is just so bold and daring and all that. And then you look at the fans and they're like, but you did our characters dirty. The story didn't make sense. Like, yeah, it's bold, but it's bold in the wrong ways.
Well, and I think that to go the way that I had to clarify it for me is that the critics are looking at what was attempted and how cool what was attempted, but and the fans are looking at what was actually executed.
Indeed, because
and
most fans aren't going to sit there and try and write a lit paper on this, and yet that feels very much how the critics approach this just initially. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I think that is really important to that is that the critics, because they all sit there and act like a lit class among themselves, they write for each other more than they do the actual audience anymore. Like they sit there in their little bubble and talk about how smart the game is, how smart they are, how much smarter and more capable about expressing those opinions than just us lowly players are, or moviegoers or whatever.
That's getting a little freaking old.
I know. You start treating your audience as dumb, you're going to run into problems.
And again, they're all running it. Well, no, you just didn't understand what they were going for. It's like, well, no, we absolutely understood. We absolutely understand what you're going for. The problem was you didn't do it. You actually didn't accomplish what you set out to accomplish.
Kind of like Ellie.
No. Look at what we bring up The Last of Us 2, we can bring up Star Wars,
The Last Jedi,
Game of Thrones season 8, which that's your baby there.
Captain Marvel, all of these.
No, absolutely. And it's like, well, but look what they were trying to do, and you just don't. No, I understand what they were trying to do,
but they just didn't execute it.
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is
their execution was really
bad. My lit teacher didn't give me the grade because I tried real hard. They gave me the grade because of my execution of it.
Oh, indeed. If you've got typos and whatnot, that's obviously would be the equivalent of like bad camera shots or glitches in a game. Bad camera shots being movie. Yeah. And then so that would be like your technicals, right? But then maybe your phrasing is off. Maybe you don't word things in a clear way. And also, this is something I am very firm on, is that if I don't understand what your story is going for, that's not on me as much as it is on you. You did not explain yourself correctly. That's actually something I got from my guitar teacher. And I say, sorry, I just didn't get it. That's on me. And he goes, no, that's as much on me because I didn't explain it properly.
Well,
this goes back to the writers and the directors and all that. And games have those now too. So, that's kind of a lump term. But if you don't explain yourself properly, you can't just sit there and all of a sudden stick your nose up and just be like, well, you just didn't get it. And so these critics, because they are also approaching this very high literature, very high art sort of approach, which I think is kind of the wrong attitude to have.
I just think it's wrong just in general.
For so many of these things, because, we're not talking about the Mona Lisa. We're talking about pop culture. We're talking about superhero movies. We're talking about movies with space wizards
and zombies and space wizards.
Right. Like, this is not, this is not a Rembrandt painting. This is not the Mona Lisa. This is not a sculpture by Michelangelo. This is pop culture. It's meant to be consumed. And this is the other thing that I think is real important to look at, too, is that with modern media, movies, TV shows, games, comic books, is it's as much art as it is a product, and as much a product as it is art.
Yeah.
And so if you forget that you are actually trying to sell this thing.
Well, and that's something I could spiral into because we've talked about this, and that's
yes,
actually
a
part of our toxic fan base.
But
myth.
I mean,
but
it'll all blend together.
But
at some
it
point.
does
yeah.
all blend together. But,
yeah.
No, and here's the problem: is that these critics, whereas gamers and moviegoers definitely feel cheated when it's like, well, you had this, let's say, pre-existing thing, because let's face it, we're in the era of the sequels, the prequels,
the
redos,
cinematic universe, the shared worlds.
It's all a retread and a retelling of stuff that already exists because creativity has all but been lost.
Oh God! Well, it's not profitable.
Well,
it's not profitable.
No, and so what they're doing is they're taking these things that are pre-existing, and then they're trying new things with them, which, again, I mean, I think you and I have even talked about it. Like The Last Jedi, the bones were good. It had good bones, but the meat, it had no meat. It had no meat on the bones, you know what I mean? And that was the problem, is that, and they say, well, but you just, and again, I cannot stress that it all keeps going back to this place where they just go, well, this is what they were trying to do, and this is what they wanted to do, and gamers are like, no, but that's, and I think that a lot of reviewers and stuff just don't explain that well. Is it's like, it's not about what you tried, it's about what I got.
And, but that is actually a reflection of our society as much as it is anything too now, is that, you get that A for effort sort of thing, right? And I am sick of giving multi-billion-dollar corporations an A for effort. No, you have the money, you have the talent, you have the resources, you need to execute.
Yeah.
And I don't care how smart you think you are. I don't care how smart the critic is. I don't care how clever they think they're being with their analogies. It's like there was one critic who said that in a medium meaning video games, everything is John Wick. The Last of Us 2 is Schindler's List.
Oh my God.
And it's just like, dude, that is like the most disconnected, pretentious way of trying to say something, not to mention reductive to a movie that is about a very dark time in human history. Like, do not do that.
Yeah.
That is asinine.
Right.
Do not do that. But they think they're just so clever, and they approach this like your lit teacher that and I hate to say this, but I'm sorry, Shakespeare is actually not high literature. It was written for the masses.
Yeah, no, he was. Well, and that's one of the things that a lot of people don't seem to understand.
I know, when we ascribe all these meanings to Shakespeare now, this is what Shakespeare meant. This is what Shakespeare intended.
That's kind of where it goes into like the headcanon of a lot of these critics. Because here's the thing: is I know a lot of, because there are a lot of people out there who will defend certain things. And my thing is that if you have to defend the thing for what you think they were going for, it doesn't exist in that medium.
No, you cannot spin it and say, well, they meant this because of X, Y, and Z. No, they actually have to show X, Y, and Z for it to actually be executed in the...
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've seen so many times in the reviews that I've read just across the board over the last, God, I'm not even going to name all the publications because you and I
they're everywhere.
How many? And it's
everywhere.
Always this idea that it feels like these critics are trying to headcanon this stuff, whereas gamers and moviegoers, we're just like, guys, if it's not on the face value here, no, we're not talking now.
There's nuanced subtext thing, but that is still part of the execution.
That's still part of it. But like a lot of stuff can be very, can be decently face value with some nuance in it. I mean, we're not talking about movies like Joker here, where Joker, that whole movie is just a mind twist and makes you think, okay, what scenes are real and what scenes are not real. No spoilers here for anybody, but it is a mind twist. And Joker was one of those few movies that was specifically designed to make you ask, what the hell did they intend?
So the movie executed this correctly. It didn't shoot for it and then fail.
Miss. No, it wanted people to ask questions, and the problem is that most of these critics are looking at these games or movies or whatever, and they're saying, well, this is what they wanted you to ask. And be like, but that wasn't their intention. Their intention was not. Their intention in many instances is to push a message, because the fact of the matter is
it's becoming way too common. It's becoming way too common.
We can't get away from politics anymore. It's just infecting everything that we do. So they're trying to push a message. They're trying to preach. They're trying to stand at the pulpit of whatever they think that people need to know. And the fact of the matter is that when you start throwing stuff like that in there and you lose the plot because you just write it terribly.
You cannot bend the plot to fit the messaging. You've got to, if you write a story with messaging in it and you do it coherently, it can actually be very important. I mean, we call those parables, right? And parable has been a long-standing teaching message, but you can't just headcanon everything into what you want. It's like I see so many critics. I've seen probably half a dozen now, even on YouTube or major outlets, sit there and look at certain events in games or movies and be like, "Oh, I just don't understand how they think this is bad writing," and it's because your headcanon says that it's not. You're sitting there and you're spinning it in a way.
I've heard many YouTubers even have to say, I saw this thing, and I thought it was good. There's been plenty of them over the years.
Oh God,
but they're like, when I got back home and I was thinking about it, I was like, wait a minute, no, I'm filling in the gaps,
and that's the
filling
litmus
in
test,
the gaps,
right? Is if you have to fill in the gaps, and I think so many of these critics want to fill in the gaps because it's that lit teacher sort of. Like what the same thing we do with Shakespeare and all that. You fill in the gaps. You ascribe meaning where there was none.
Well, I'm going to throw out a word here that I've seen you from many people, but access media too.
Yes,
we do have to factor some of this in. Is access media? We're not saying these people are getting paid. What we are saying is that we do know that companies practice because they've been caught in the past, and they say,
they've been caught all over the place. Rating, I mean, it's pretty out in the open at this point.
Yeah,
that if you are too negative or if you're too much of a wild card, you don't get access. You don't get to go to those fancy press events. You don't get early copies. You don't get to go to the the pre-screenings for movies. You don't get. And so it's just well, if you don't play ball with me, I will reduce your relevance in your sphere. And
which is why I will say this: the outcry to Sonic the Hedgehog was so refreshing because they came out and they were like, "Guys, we're sorry, we didn't work, but thank you for telling us." And then they were appreciative when the fans showed up to Sonic and made that movie a pretty good success.
I know the fans said, "Whoa, that's creepy." They made it look more like the game Sonic.
Yeah,
and then fans showed up, and actually, I hear the movie's pretty decent. I've not watched it yet.
No, I've not watched it yet. I know that Mama Runner and the little ones have seen it, and they said it's really good.
Yeah.
And I actually still want to watch it because and the reason I want to watch it, and I would like to buy it and pay for it, is because they didn't come in with that like, oh, well, no, we know what's best for the fan. Well, no, you don't, because maybe in the beginning when you're very first starting this idea, this thing that you're going for, this continuation of a story. But once you get this idea that you're not just going to continue a story, but you're going to subvert the expectations of the story, because I'm getting freaking sick of hearing that. Wow, it's really hard not to cuss in this video. It's really, really hard not to cuss in this video.
It's really hard.
But when they come to this idea where we're not just at an original idea anymore, we're long past it. It's been expanded by many people. It's been expanded by fans themselves in many cases. And for these guys to come out and say, no, you just don't understand because you're just not cultured enough. And gamers are like, the hell do you mean? I built this thing. I mean, I paid for it.
Yeah, I know. We are apparently cultured enough for the first one, but we're too uncultured now?
Yeah.
And why do you say that? Well, again, I think it's that little bit of that, echo chamber, that bubble that they live in, where, they want to be so intelligent and clever about it, and then they write for each other, and then it sits there and it spirals and it percolates, and it just turns into this fundamental disconnect where they are looking and we are looking for two different things.
Yeah. One of us is they're looking for what somebody's trying to do, and gamers and moviegoers and TV watchers are looking for what's executed. And I can't drive that point home enough, and that's the disconnect here, because people are like, this just goes to show the disconnect, and like they don't understand and they don't understand. It's like, no, we're looking for two totally separate things. And I'm sorry, what someone's trying to go for is wrong. It's wrong. If
you cannot have a critical piece when you give too many brownie points for a try. You just can't.
No, you can't.
And so the other thing I'd say is that just the investment levels are also different. Like, obviously, longtime fans look at you with Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
When you know all the deep lore and you know all this, and then you come out with something like The Last Jedi, which is a complete and utter deviation from it.
Oh, I still look for. I won't watch The Mandalorian. I won't. There's a lot of the Star Wars movies I haven't seen.
Nothing post Disney.
No,
yeah.
I've watched enough of the newer movies. I can't finish them. I've watched enough of them to know what's happening in them and to have seen both positive and negative reviews. But when Disney came out and they said, hey, all the extended universe and the stuff you love, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, are they going to start incorporating it? They're like, nope, it's gone. It's what is it, Legacy now?
Yeah, Star Wars Legends.
Yeah, Star Wars Legends. That's right.
Yeah,
it's under the Legends banner, and I was like, "Are you effing kidding me?"
Investment. So
I
don't want to get too deep down the Star Wars hole here.
Well, no, but
because I know our Star Wars hole.
But it does show a disrespect of what they think they can
definitely
do with
a
the
disconnect.
property.
And that's my point, right? Is that the critics and even the writers, the people who make this, especially when teams change. I mean, you look at gaming, the teams change a lot.
All of the time.
And like, for example, between Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2, the co-director left. Bruce Straley.
Which was well.
So
there's a lot of controversy behind that, though. Too.
Oh, I know. There's always controversy. Always.
There was it.
But my point is that the creative team is fundamentally different.
Yeah.
And so we look at all these changes, and then even the creative teams behind this may not have the same level of investment that the previous team did, that the fans do. And so obviously, fans and fan bases, and we can get into this more in Part 3. You can't please everybody, right? There's always going to be somebody, but at the same time, you want to be.
But if you go with what Neil Druckmann said for The Last of Us 2, he wanted that. He wanted people to be mad at his game.
Oh, he did.
He wanted to do something divisive just for divisiveness' sake, and now we're far enough removed from it that everybody's starting to come out and attack the fans. And it's like, you said you wanted this. Why are you attacking people for it?
Right. And it's I was trying to piss people off, and now I'm upset that they're pissed. And you saw the same thing with The Last Jedi. Rian Johnson said, "I want to surprise Star Wars fans. I don't care about." Any sort of backlash, and then when the backlash got too strong, all of a sudden it's and again, that's a conversation we continue.
I know
in
a lot of
3.
people. A lot of people they did the same thing with Doctor Who.
I've
seen a lot of coverage. I'm not a Doctor Who fan, but I've
again,
seen a lot of coverage.
The critics love it. And then there was that Dave Chappelle.
Well, it's because it's what they're trying to do.
There was that Dave Chappelle stand-up routine that came out. Oh God, what was it? A year ago?
Not quite.
And the critics,
I watched it.
The critics hated it. They hated it. And then I think it's still sitting at like a 98 or a 99 on Rotten Tomatoes.
It is one of the highest scored audience reviewed. Because, and here's the thing. He called out members of the media, critics, Hollywood actors, and general people. He didn't care. He went in with a broadsword, a comedic, beautiful broadsword, and just started hacking at people. And by about halfway through it, you're like, hell, he's ran me up too, like he's running on.
It's the South Park treatment. We with nothing sacred.
Nothing is sacred, and he was just going after everyone.
It offends their little ivory tower, right? This idea of I'm literary, intelligent. I can speak. I'm eloquent. I'm clever. I'm what's the word we always try and avoid here? Pompous being one of them, but but there's another one. Starts with a P, and it'll come to me as soon as we're done with this episode.
Probably,
I know it will. But they just think that they are so damn clever and so damn intelligent that when anybody goes, no, you're basically just filling in everything with headcanon, and this makes no sense. It's backwards. And being brave and bold and surprising or subversive.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it good. It does not inherently make it good.
I put a post up on Parler the other day, and it was a Screen Rant had come out with an article. It's like, well, now an explanation and how we know that why all these people were around the Emperor at the end of the movie. How you had that.
But they keep filling it in between.
And that's the problem. Is
the headcanons and the novels.
And I put up the post. I put the post up. And I was like, is it what? I was like, does anybody remember the days when it didn't take all these media outlets to fill in the blanks of the plot holes for movies?
Yeah,
and
but there's less
then
money
somebody
in that.
commented, I couldn't respond because I was like, I can't defend this. But they were like, but Star Wars has always had holes missing from it that people have come and fill in. And I'm like,
not the main line plot.
Not the main line plot, no.
And it's
not the main line story or the main events of the story. That's just not something that has ever happened. Now, people have expanded definitely on Star Wars.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that there aren't a couple of things here and there in Star Wars.
Well, it's like there are comics that fill in some of Ellie's early life, or there are some massive multimedia books, comics, animes around Halo, but you couldn't come into 5 and know what's going on without seeing that. That's lazy writing.
See, and that's the thing too, is if what we are watching or what we are reading or what we are experiencing
has to be filled
does not
in,
convey all of the information that we need to know in order for it to add up to our enjoyment or our good review of it, then it's poorly executed. And if they go, well, no, but didn't you read the 72 books, the anime series, the Sea Lake movie that
and it's
came?
like, no, nor should I have to. And here's the other thing I just want to get, because we're rapidly running out of time here, is that I understand that with critics, people who are reviewing literally everything professionally, I understand that desire to see something new.
I totally get that.
You've seen the same thing 1,000 times, and yes, it's what the mainstream wants, but you've just seen it, you're tired of it, and then all of a sudden something very art house comes out. Think Sundance for film, or this very kind of artistic indie game comes out, and you're gonna gush all over it because, well, it's new to you, but you don't realize that you are so desperate for something new that it's not going to ever be more than a niche product. Because it is still
either that, or you're so desperate for something new, you're willing to defend poor execution. And I think that's what a lot of these critics,
absolutely.
They want something new so badly they're willing to defend poor execution.
It's like if you haven't
and gamers and moviegoers aren't. You've
had to eat chicken for the last 6 months. You are so sick of chicken, and somebody gives you a steak, and you're just, oh, thank God it's not chicken.
I don't even think somebody gives them a steak. I think somebody gives them barbecue chicken. It's not like it's that different, but anyway.
And the sauce can be, sticky and crappy and all this, but at least it's different. And I do think that a lot of that plays into that.
I do.
So anyway, just in summation, they approach things from a very different standpoint. Their investment is obviously very different than the fan bases or anybody else's. And then third and finally, they're just desperate for something new, something different. And all this,
and they're willing, and like I said, they're
willing
to let
overlook
execution die.
Yep. And then feel very smug about how smart they are, and that really gets old.
And that gets old. So
So anyway,
thank you guys for checking out part 1 of our Critics, Mary Sue's, and Toxic Fandoms conversation. See us in part 2, which should be coming out on Thursday.
Should be, provided we don't stay up till 4 a.m. too often. That happens.
And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell down below. And then I want you all to comment down below and let us know what you think the actual difference is between how gamers and moviegoers are looking at a product and how critics are looking at a product.
Yes.
Go in,
consumer
let us
versus
know.
critic.
Yeah, let us know what you think the difference is. Tell us what you think the difference is, because honestly, we probably missed something here. We most likely
I'm sure we did. So anyway,
thank you guys so much for checking out A Drink with Crazy, and we will see you all next time. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for watching A Drink with Crazy. If you liked the conversation, make sure to click here to see more.